But if you straw man me, and argue that I'm making arguments that I didn't make, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you if you lie about what I'm saying.
So you're a grown-up when you argue. Got it.
I am a grown-up, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you seem very emotional, and I threw you a tissue just in case. I also have a tampon in case you need a tampon.
Adam, she's going to beat the shit out of you.
That's fine. That's fine. It's a tampon just in case. It's the only thing I've ever heard you talk about is Israel. You're obsessed with Israel.
Well, then you need to get to know me a little better.
Trump derangement syndrome, you have Israel derangement syndrome. And it's seeping out left and right. I hope and pray.
So I bring that up because if anyone is under the assumption that a regime change war in Iran is going to be a cakewalk, they have another thing coming.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Underground Talks. Adam Sosnick shows up with the usual toolkit: fear-mongering, selective outrage, and enough double standards to make a neocon blush. One breath he's waving the Abraham Accords like a Nobel Peace Prize. The next, he's foaming at the mouth over Islamification while ignoring who bombed these countries into chaos. He claims to care about hostages, borders, and national security until you mention Israel's trigger-happy rampage in Gaza. Then suddenly, it's context and crocodile tears. Hannah's not gonna flinch. She's gonna come armed with history, receipts, and a bullshit detector set to max volume. Brace yourself, this isn't a debate. It's demolition day. Let's go.
What do you think? Their chance, and then they're just like they're doing pom-poms and they're rooting for a football game?
How far down the road do you want to let them get?
They're trying to destabilize the West.
Wait, guys, we destabilize the entirety of the Middle East. I don't blame anyone for being angry with the United States over that.
But it is now
Iran is the sole
we have the Abraham Accords.
Of destabilizing the Middle East.
No.
Saudi knows it.
No.
By the way, here's a little fun fact for you.
You have to ask yourself what role they are playing.
If all the countries in the Middle East were actually against what Israel is doing, you would hear statement after statement after statement condemning Israel. I don't hear shit from the Emiratis. I don't hear shit from the Saudis. I don't hear shit from the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Syrians. Syrians are cheering on Israel. So here's my question for you.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
All of Israel's enemies are cheering for Israel against Iran.
They're definitely on board.
And the people of Iran are cheering for Israel.
The Saudis,
so you have a losing side. You're taking the 20% of an 80-20 issue. Best of luck.
You literally just made my argument.
No,
Why do you think Israel pushed for regime change in these countries? They wanted to get rid of leaders that weren't friendly.
In Saudi? In Qatar?
Syria, Libya, Afghanistan. They tried, but we failed.
You know who pushed for regime change in Syria? The Syrian people that overtook Bashar al-Assad.
Right.
Your arguments are weak and invalid.
That had the United States involved, Israel involved, Russia involved. That was a major proxy war.
If Russia gave two shits about Syria and had the wherewithal to do it, they would defend Syria, and so would Iran. But because they're being flanked by Ukraine and Iran is being defunded by Israel, nobody can come to Syria's defense.
Israel should fight its own wars.
Now the people of Syria are going to have to decide
we shouldn't send any of our soldiers, and when we do, inevitably,
Anna, just say
I want to come back
Iran
on the show
first. That's fine.
No, I'm not going to say it because I don't believe that.
Can we just stop and remember who the president is? Everyone is underestimating the strength of Donald Trump.
Giving us 5 minutes before we move on.
There's no way he's going to let himself be pushed around by anybody, including
the final thing I'll say about this, and then we can move on, is we currently have a United States Congress that's nickel and diming the out of Americans by focusing on cuts to Medicaid, SNAP benefits. In the meantime, we are sending tens of billions of dollars to Israel so they can fight their wars.
But you got to remember, that money isn't just going to Israel. It's going
let me just say one thing.
No,
I agree
it's
with you.
going to defense contractors, Lindy.
So
I don't give a fuck about defense contractors making more money. I think that's the problem.
So Lindy, let me say one thing. Let me say one thing.
She's saying exactly that it's not just.
It's priming our economic.
Have you ever done a budget before?
No.
That money.
Do not make the mistake of thinking defense contractors fattening their pockets even more is somehow beneficial to the American people.
You just heard me make that. I'm just saying it's not that. You're saying the money is going all the way overseas. I'm saying it's also coming back here.
She's trying to get you to see the role that we're playing.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know, but do you understand that it is a redistribution of wealth?
I'm isolationist. I don't want this happening.
I know, Lindy, I'm not going to direct this to you. I'm just going to direct it to the audience or in general, okay? This is a redistribution of wealth from working class Americans to defense contractors.
I don't want it happening.
Because of Netanyahu.
Right.
Well, I mean,
I think he's a factor. I don't think he's the only factor.
likes to push false narratives about, ooh, this country's a big threat. American soldiers, go fight this war. Go fight this war. Give me money. Give me money. Give me money.
You have to give our people a little bit more credit than trying to be.
I do give our people credit, including the actual genuine America First crowd that does not want this war. They don't want this war. The left doesn't want this war. Actually, this is the one issue where it seems like there's some unity. With contingents
the gays
on
for
both
Gaza
sides.
and the isolationists have teamed
what
up
I'm saying is
to be basically anti-America.
That is absolutely the truth. The far left sees Jews as having all the white privilege and being the ultimate imperialists. And then the MAGA far right sees the Jews as being responsible for all of this. And it equals a real bad situation for the Jews. I'm being friggin' honest.
If you're
doing the same thing that they've done for years, they blame the Jews for everything. That's fine. That's cool. That's your argument.
If you're concerned about anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is real, and it has increased. Hold on, it has increased significantly in the United States. You want to know why?
Yeah, tell me why.
When you see the slaughter of all those innocent kids in Gaza, and our government provides cover for it and, in fact, funds it, that leads to a lot of rage among hardworking Americans who see their quality of life go down the drain as we're funding a genocide.
Kids being killed.
Can we bottom?
And I would love to see Hamas leave.
Right, it's not about Hamas. Let's
Can we talk about
if Hamas would, in all fairness, listen, I agree with you. I agree with you. The other side, though, because there are two sides, why didn't Hamas just give the friggin' hostages back? Then there'd be no excuse.
Yeah, I agree. Hamas should have given the hostages back 100%. But let's also acknowledge when there is a siege on Gaza, when there are Israeli and American, by the way, hostages being held captive by Hamas, they're not just starving those poor Palestinian civilians, they're also starving their own hostages. Let's also not forget about the fact that the IDF shot and killed 3 Israeli hostages themselves. They didn't ask any questions, immediately started firing, killed 3 people. We need to actually have an honest conversation. Well, I mean, they didn't ask any questions. They were literally shirtless, waving white flags, saying, we need help, we need help. They got shot and killed immediately. The IDF is super belligerent in how they're carrying out this war. They're killing a lot of innocent people. In the case that I'm outlining, I'm talking about 3 Israeli hostages. If you're not willing to be critical of Israel, I question how honest you're being about this whole situation.
I'm critical of Israel just like I'm critical of America.
Can we be...
Lindy,
hold on.
If America makes mistakes, I'll call them out. But I'm very pro-America. But we do make mistakes. If Israel makes mistakes, I'll call them out. But I'm very pro-Israel. I don't understand what you're doing when you're trying to be pro-Hamas and pro-Iran. Hold on.
When you strawman me, it makes this entire exchange fall apart. So I'm trying to have an honest exchange with you. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Please don't put words in my mouth.
You can talk when I'm done talking, and that's how this will work. No?
But if you strawman me, and argue that I'm making arguments that I didn't make, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you if you lie about what I'm saying.
So you're a grown-up when you argue. Got it.
I am a grown-up, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you seem very emotional, and I threw you a tissue just in case. I also have a tampon in case you need a tampon.
Adam, she's going to beat the shit out of you.
That's fine. That's fine. It's a tampon just in case you start crying.
Listen, I'm not deterred by your ridiculous juvenile attacks. Let's have an argument about the actual facts.
Israel is fighting terrorists around the world. And in this one particular situation, why isn't Israel doing genocide in Lebanon? Why aren't they doing it in Syria? Why aren't they doing it everywhere else? Why is it only in Gaza? By the way, why is Gaza
Because they want to clear Palestinians out of that land and take it. That's why.
And let's say that were the case, which it's not.
It is.
Why couldn't they do that? Because that's what everyone has done in that region for decade and after century.
Wait, why couldn't they do what?
The Islamization of the entire Middle East, who's the centerpiece of that? Okay?
These have been First of all, these have been Muslim-majority countries forever.
And why is every Muslim country fighting with each other? Syrians fight with Syrians. 500,000 people died in Syria. 1 million people have died in Sudan. In Sudan. 500,000 people have died in Yemen. I don't hear bo peep about any of that. But when Israel gets attacked on October 7th, that's all you want to talk about. I'd give you a little bit more credit if you were talking about the Christians that are being killed in Syria. I'd give you a little bit more credit if you would talk about the millions of Muslims that have died around the Middle East. But you guys don't say shit unless Israel's involved. That's the problem I have
Because we fund Israel's wars of aggression.
So just because we fund it, we're not allowed to talk about anything else? So we can't talk about the genocide in every other country?
I talk about foreign policy in different contexts all the time.
The only thing I've ever heard you talk about is Israel. You're obsessed with Israel.
Well, then you need to get to know me a little better.
Trump derangement syndrome, you have Israel derangement syndrome. And it's seeping out left and right. I hope and pray that you stop being so ignorant to the fact that Israel is defending America and American values against terrorists
How are they defending
around the Middle
America?
East.
How?
Let's say that Iran was a threat, which a lot of people think they are.
They are. Let's not even hypothetical.
People think so. And I know there's a lot of credible and intelligent people who don't, right? And unfortunately, time's going to tell how this is going to play out.
I don't know too many credible or intelligent people that don't think Iran is a threat.
But then the argument on the other side is that Israel is doing the dirty work and getting demonized for it. That is the argument on the other side.
Also, Adam, can I also say a couple of conversations ago, Adam, you brought up something very interesting that we haven't even addressed. It's the Islamic terrorism and then Islamification of Europe and also America. If you're going to talk about...
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Wait,
yes.
I'm definitely not getting to know Kings today.
Let's talk about that.
Anna, I really appreciate everything you brought up. And, you know, the Israeli regime does deserve to be criticized on occasion. But we also have to look at this extreme threat of Islamic terrorism that is here at home. I mean, do I even need to mention 9/11? We just had a shooting a couple weeks ago against the Jewish community, right?
Our regime change wars have spurred Islamist groups like ISIS to pop up.
But you don't
what about
know that this is that yet.
Okay.
You don't know
All right,
that
so
yet.
then let's end it here.
The Iranian Revolution started in 1979.
Let's end it here. Let me just say one more thing. Let me say one more thing.
Because
Can we play that clip?
When we inevitably get dragged into this war, when we inevitably end up spending tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion, depending on how long that war with Iran lasts, will you guys come back on this show and at least admit I was right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wait, hold on a second.
What's the question? Say it again.
Within 6 months,
and
Iran is defanged in the Abraham Accord. This is a pipe dream. I get it. But if it ends within 6 months, Iran is defanged. I don't know if there'll be a regime change. I have no idea. I haven't heard talk of that yet. Obviously, I know that we wouldn't be hearing that because nobody is for that. In fact, Trump denied involvement because it's so friggin' unpopular. I get it. But if in 6 months this is resolved, it's like Soleimani, it came, it went, Iran is defanged, and the Abraham Accords are expanded, will you admit that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. What I'm saying is that Trump is not going to allow himself to be dragged in. I just don't think it's a possibility.
You have way too much. Look, I don't have that much faith in any politician.
I'm not saying, you know that I'm not MAGA. What I'm saying is he ran on America first. He ran on isolation.
But guys, I just want you to remember one thing, because you brought up Yemen. I'm so happy you brought up Yemen, Adam. Thank you for doing that, okay? Because the United States assisted Saudi Arabia in fighting the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Who are, of course, backed by Iran. Now, did we beat the Houthis in Yemen?
It's still going.
It's still going. So I bring that up because if anyone is under the assumption that a regime change war in Iran is going to be a cakewalk, they have another thing coming.
Okay, but Trump
who said
bankrupted
cakewalk?
them,
Who said
and it made a huge difference.
It's going to be a massive endeavor.
He choked them out financially.
Which means that the U.S. is going to get dragged into that war, Adam. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, so what you're arguing is a hypothetical, and I hear you on that. Nobody wants the United States to get involved in more wars. I'm with you on that.
Agree.
But you're arguing a hypothetical as if it's fact.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I had with you. It's like, we can't have this, we can't want this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but it's not happening right now.
So
let's argue what's happening.
So let's not happen the first time. It doesn't happen, right?
But
like she's...
Lindy's bringing up probably the most important point, because we're so fixated on Israel. Lindy's talking about the Islamization of European Christian cities.
Yeah, do you know why that's happening? Because of refugee crises, due to wars that destabilize these Muslim-majority countries.
And there you have it, folks. Adam Sosnick spinning like a washing machine on Zionist rinse cycle, while Ana Kasparian calmly folds his logic into a neat little pile of contradictions. He rants about Islamic terror while ignoring the West's role in manufacturing them. He cries about hostages, but forgets the Pentagon holds the leash. And when Ana brings up the dead kids in Gaza, suddenly he's tossing tissues and tampons like it's a middle school food fight. Adam's so pro-America, yet cheers on a foreign government, soaking up billions, while Americans ration insulin and eat ramen noodle for dinner. He can't even decide if Israel is a tiny victim or a nuclear bulldozer defending American values. You don't defend freedom by financing apartheid, genius. Ana won because she didn't play the game. She flipped the board. No war cheerleading, no defense contractor bootlicking, just cold, uncomfortable truth wrapped in receipts. Adam showed up with talking points, Ana showed up with history. In the court of public opinion, that's checkmate. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.